Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much for being with us. Let me ask you, first of all, when you first started this relationship with Greece, this is about 7, 8 years ago, did you ever think it would become so close?
Actually, I thought that it was unnatural that it wasn't that close, because Israel and Greece and Cyprus are 3 democracies at the eastern edge of the Mediterranean. We have common cultural roots. Jewish and Greek culture basically formed the basis of modern Western civilization. I thought it was absurd that we weren't close, that we were distant for reasons that didn't make any sense. So when I met Papandreou by accident in a restaurant in Moscow.
So this is true, there was an accident, how it all started?
I went to the Pushkin Cafe after a visit, finishing a visit in Moscow, and I was sitting with my wife, and some waiter came over and said, you know, the Prime Minister of Greece would like to talk to you. I said, by all means. And we started having a conversation. We were the last people in the restaurant, kept them open. And it immediately followed that there was every logic to form this bond, cultural, economic, security, tourism, every conceivable reason to do so, and no reason not to do so. And shortly after Papandreou came to Israel, I came here, and the rest, I don't want to say is history, because we're making history in the process, but it seems so natural today, and through changing administrations, it's a solid bond.
And how has the relationship evolved over this time, in your opinion?
First of all, a lot of Israelis have come here. About 400,000 Israelis go to Greece every year, and that's up an enormous percentage. Multiples, and also to Cyprus. Secondly, our military has, on occasion, joint exercises, and we cooperate on the questions of terrorism. Third, we are discussing now something which, if it materializes, has, I think, tremendous possibilities for all our countries, and that is an Eastern Mediterranean pipeline that would connect the gas fields of Israel and Cyprus through Greece to Italy and to Europe. And fourth is everything else, and we're doing just about everything else, including on this visit we discussed the internship of young Greek and Cypriot students and engineers in Israeli, not only Israeli universities, and Israeli high-tech companies. And this is the best form of technology transfer that I know.
Give us a sense of the energy potential the area has, because there's a lot of talk about this all over the world. And why are Cyprus, Greece, and Israel linked in that way?
We have gas reserves, substantial gas reserves in Israel that are already proven. Proven gas reserves, smaller but still substantial in Cyprus. Possible gas reserves off the shore of Crete. So we're talking about big reserves that can go naturally to a European market. If we pool our resources together, it'll cost a lot less to build a pipeline for potential companies than for either one of us alone. So this obviously makes sense.
And the EASTMED, when do you think it's going to be a final decision whether it's feasible or not? And is that mutually exclusive with the pipeline going through Turkey?
No. We have enough gas to support multiple pipelines. The Eastern Mediterranean pipeline was considered a fantasy a year and a half ago. And since then, we've begun to explore it more systematically and scientifically. There was an initial survey done by a Greek company, actually a Greek-Italian company, and they came back and they said, no, it's feasible, and it's doable, and it's profitable. So now we're going to the next phase, and we're going to check it even more carefully, but if it's a go, we'll go.
As you know, there's a looming crisis in the horizon because Cyprus has announced there will be some drilling. Turkey has made some statements about that. Are you concerned about tension in the area?
Well, we always hope that things will be resolved peacefully.
And you think the Cyprus issue is going to be resolved, should be resolved?
Well, it's been 44 years, I think, something like that. If you can finish it in the next 4 months, we'll be delighted, believe me.
And how much further do you think the security relationship could develop between Greece and Israel?
I think that there's a natural partnership. It's reflected right now in something that affects people's lives, and even their very ability to live, but you don't think about it. And that's our ability to send firefighting planes to each other. This is not military, This is rescue operations. So we've had some fires in Israel, and Greek pilots came recently and actually saved a piece of Haifa, our Saloniki, by the sea, you know. Greek pilots came in with your planes, which have certain capabilities that our planes don't have. In a future crisis, you might need our planes that don't have the capabilities your plane have. Instead of each of us buying these fleets of variegated capabilities, we have one fleet. It's a joint fleet, yours, ours, and Cyprus is included, Croatia too. Recently, our pilots flew to Cyprus and put out significant forest fires there. So this is an illustration of the fact that we have common interests that affect the well-being of our people. On security, this is always the case, certainly in fighting terror. It's always good to have friends.
Do you think that there's any chance that there will be some Israeli investment in Greece? You have a very developed high-tech sector in Israel. We're very interested in that. Do you see any potential there?
Yeah, I do. I think it's possible but you have to look at how these things happen. How did the Israeli high-tech sector emerge? You know, it emerged by Israelis who went to work in the startup companies of Silicon Valley and then came and replicated it in Israel, and American investment followed these Israeli entrepreneurs who came back from the United States and built these incredible companies. So I think in many ways, the best way to replicate this for Greece is to do exactly what we did, is to have a few dozen, beginning, maybe more, Greek engineers and students come and spend time in Israel, in Israeli companies. Let them absorb there's a special culture, startup culture. Let them make friends with their Israeli counterparts. You know, some of them are going to be entrepreneurs. And instead of, you know, some of them will want to live here. Maybe all of them would like to live here. Maybe they'd like to raise their children in Greek culture, speaking Greek. They'd like to live in their own homeland. And this is what happened to us. Israelis came back to Israel. Greeks can go back after spending this a few months or a few years in Israel, go back to Greece, and you'll be amazed at what happens, because we are testament to that. It happened in our case, and we are now, you know, the other place in the world. In terms of concentration of technological innovation, there's the United States, and closely followed by Israel. Well, we'll be very happy if the same thing happens in Greece, because it will give you tremendous sense of hope for the future and a tremendous economy.
Talking about the U.S., do you think the Trump administration is bringing more realism to U.S. policy towards the Middle East? And is it going to slow down or accelerate a potential solution to the Palestinian problem?
I think the most important thing that has happened is a reappraisal of Iran. I think there's an appraisal now that Iran is not the solution, but the source of many of the region's problems. And that is, in my opinion, a correct assessment, and I welcome it. The second thing is that there's a renewed interest and commitment to fight ISIS, the other form of Islamic fundamentalism that threatens both the Arab countries and the non-Arabs in this region and the world, the whole world. And I think that that is definitely the focus of current U.S. policy, and I welcome it. I think this helps peace, because I think when you fight these terrorists and these extremists, you create the space for peace. And I'll tell you something else that happened. In a peculiar way, the Iranian deal, which I think was not a good deal, to put it mildly, I think it brought the Arab states and Israel closer to one another. And ultimately, that can help also with our peace efforts with the Palestinians.
Is something imminent happening there, you think? There's going to be a renewed peace effort?
Well, I wish you success with your talks about Northern Cyprus, and you wish us success in our efforts with the Palestinians.